on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast. I used to say I'm not a numbers person, but when you run a business, you become the CEO whether you plan to or not. You have to understand finances. You have to be able to create and understand systems and have strategy. And that really intimidated me at first. I think we're great at training people through schooling in how to do their craft, but not how to build a business or run a business or to delegate. Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Alexander, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Hey sorority chatters, welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different because it's just me. Recently, I had the honor of being interviewed by Authority Magazine for their Female Founders series, and it made me realize something, that sometimes articles are great, but conversations are better. So I wanted to take a moment today to take that interview and unpack it with you. Not just to talk about my journey as a founder, but talk about what it means for you. Because here's what I believe deeply. Your story, your ideas, and your voice matter. And the world needs more women who are willing to build something meaningful. So whether you're already running a business, if you're dreaming about starting one, or if you're just trying to figure out what the next chapter of life looks like, this episode's for you. So kind of going back to where it all started for me, my origin story and how I love talking about that. The seeds were planted when I was very young. My granddad was a realtor, and when I was a kid, I would tag along with him to open houses. It was the early 90s. It was probably endearing to see a small child there and help sell the house. Things have changed a lot. You probably wouldn't see that anymore, but I digress. I remember walking with him through those homes because each one was different. They had different architecture, different furniture, and different energy just based on how the houses were laid out and decorated. And as a kid, I could even feel that. Some houses would feel really warm and inviting, some felt more formal, and some really told the story of the people who lived in it. I didn't have the language for it then, but I was experiencing how design affects people. I was always an artistic kid. I loved creating things and often rearranging furniture in our family home and imagining how spaces could feel better. And that curiosity has now turned into my career. So if you're listening today and you're thinking, I've always loved something like that, I want you to hear this. Sometimes the clues to your purpose show up very early in your life. The things that light you up as a kid often point you towards what you're meant to build later. It just may take some time for you to recognize that and kind of have that aha moment. So fast forward to the start of PDR Interiors. What many people don't realize is my business didn't start during a perfect season. It actually started during a very challenging time. And I think it's important to say that out loud and to share that because we often think we have to have perfect timing, have this well laid out plan, and full confidence before starting something new. But in all honesty, most of the founders that I know didn't actually start that way. We just started with an idea, a little bit of courage, and a willingness to figure it out as we go. And I think you hear that show up a lot on the podcast when people talk about the businesses that they've built, it's building the plane as we're flying it. You just have to get started, even if you don't feel ready yet. I started PDR after the firm that I worked for closed up shop due to the recession. A few years in, my mom was battling cancer and I was juggling family needs with running a young business. There's been a variety of bumps along the way. I had the pandemic, I experienced divorce. So all of that to say, what began very simply and had some ups and downs along the way eventually grew into what PDR Interiors is today. And I've learned a lot through all of those peaks and valleys. We've now designed hundreds of sorority houses across the country, along with residential homes that tell the stories of the families who live there. And if there's one thing that I've learned through all of it, it's the most meaningful businesses are built around people, not products. not services. It is all about connection. And I know you hear me say all the time what a fan I am of connection and connecting with other people. And speaking of people, that human side of this industry showed up for me in a big way during one of my earliest and most embarrassing mistakes. I know that every founder has made mistakes, and one of my most memorable ones happened really early in my career. I measured every window in a client's house incorrectly. Every single one. When the blinds came in, none of them fit. And I was mortified. I thought my career might be over before it actually even started. But the beautiful part of that story is that my client and my boss were incredibly gracious to me. We fixed the problem, everything worked out, and I learned a whole lot in that process. And the main thing that stayed with me from it is that mistakes are rarely the end of the story. They're usually just the beginning, and you get such a good lesson out of them. So if you're afraid to start something because you might mess up, I'll go ahead and tell you, you're gonna mess up. Every founder does, but mistakes don't define you. And in a perfect world, they become funny stories later down the road. What defines you, though, is how you respond to those mistakes and what you do next. When Authority magazine asked me what holds women back from starting companies, two things immediately came to mind, and that was confidence and access. I've met so many women who have incredible ideas. They're talented and capable, they're creative, but they're hesitating. Not because they can't do it, but because they don't see enough people around them doing it successfully. And sometimes we think we need to have everything figured out before we begin. But again, no founder has it figured out. Not at the beginning, not in the middle, not even years into it. And that has been something that has taken me a long time to learn. I always thought, oh, when I hit this point, when I make that milestone, or when I do X, it's just going to be smooth sailing. And joke's on me, because everything is ever changing. And that's just not the case. You're never going to have it all figured out. You're always having to pivot and learn and grow. And we don't need more perfection in the world. We need more women who believe that they are allowed to try and to experiment, to lead, and to grow along the way. Your first step doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be brave. Let's talk about the 5 things that I shared in the article that I wish someone had told me earlier. Starting with, know your why. At the heart of everything I do is a love for people and their stories. When my team and I design a home, it's not just pretty furniture, it's about how people in it are living. Same with sorority houses. Their traditions, their routines, the memories that they want to create or that they have already created in this space. These spaces hold generations of stories. And when your business is rooted in purpose, it gives you something steady to stand on when things get hard. Your why will carry you further than any motivation ever will. The second thing is to embrace the business side. I used to say I'm not a numbers person, but when you run a business, you become the CEO, whether you plan to or not. And you have to understand finances. You have to be able to create and understand systems and have strategy. And that really intimidated me at first. I think we're great at training people through schooling in how to do their craft, but not how to build a business or run a business or to delegate. And so after much trial and error, I started to realize that structure actually gives creativity room to grow. When you have systems and structure in place and your business is healthy, then your creative ideas can go further because you're not having to constantly go back and mess with the day-to-day processes. The third thing is to build with soul and systems. So this is kind of adjacent to what I was saying a second ago. Culture matters. At PDR Interiors, kindness, creativity, and integrity are all very important. But culture alone is not enough. You still need those systems. You have to have clear roles for your people. You have to have processes in place for everyone to follow, and you have to communicate with each other. So when you combine the heart with that structure, that is when your company really starts to thrive. Number 4 is to ask for help. This one took me a while. We talked a little bit about this on the episode where Erica and Caroline from my team joined me. For a long time, I needed to do everything myself. That was my mindset. That's what I thought. But the truth is that nobody builds anything meaningful alone. Mentors, peers, colleagues, and friends, all of these relationships are necessary and they matter. Once you've received that support, the next step is to pay it forward and for you to become a friend and a mentor and to pass along what you're learning along the way. And that's why mentorship is so important to me today, and I really enjoy that piece of being a female founder. Number 5 is resilience is your superpower. Every founder will go through difficult seasons. I shared some of mine. Economic downturns, personal loss, moments when you wonder if you should keep going. And honest to goodness, folks, the more founders I talk to, the more I realize those moments of wondering if you should keep going show up way more than anybody ever cares to share. I've had those moments myself. But resilience is what carries you through. Every challenge builds your strength, your creativity, and your perspective. And women founders are really good at this, at the tenacity and that rebuilding. We know how to pivot, we know how to rebuild, and resilience becomes one of the greatest strengths that we have. If I could inspire one movement, it would be this: designing spaces for connection. We spend so much of our lives indoors, whether it's in our homes, in a dorm on campus, our office at work, a classroom, but we rarely ask an important question. Does this space help people connect? Does it support joy? Does it create belonging? I guess that's technically 3 questions, but you get my point. These are things that we don't pay enough attention to. Design isn't just about aesthetics, it's about how environments make people feel. And when we create spaces that encourage connection, we're building stronger communities, and we all need community. So if there's one thing that I hope you take away from this episode today, it is this: you don't have to have everything figured out before you begin. You just have to believe your ideas are worth exploring. The world needs more women who are willing to create, more women who are willing to lead, and more women who are willing to build businesses with heart. So if you've been sitting on an idea, maybe this is your sign. You can start small, you can start messy, you can start brave, but just start. Because your story might be the one that inspires the next woman to begin hers. Thanks for letting me share a little bit of my story with you today, and I'll see you next time. Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Here's today's house hot take. Recruitment isn't a decorating competition. If you're designing just to beat the house down the street, you've already lost. The goal isn't flashier, it's more aligned. Your space should reflect your chapter's personalities and values along with the needs of the students who are living there. You don't want to focus on trends or feel pressured to achieve a certain look. Authentic always recruits better than overdone. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Alexander.